What's up everyone, Lion Roar here, and in today's video I'm going to share with you my tier list for all 58 champions in Bloodline Heroes of Lithas. But first, download Bloodline Heroes of Lithas, a mobile RPG action fighting game where you can marry your champions to create new and unique hybrids. Use the link in the description to start with some free stuff, including gold and diamonds. And I'd be honored to have you join my server so you can play alongside me. Simply click on your profile, settings, then change your server to S462. See you hopefully soon. Alright, so we're coming up on February 2023, and this is just going to be a snapshot in time of how I think all the champions shake out in the current meta. Now, if you were counting in my opener, you heard me say that there are 58 champions in Bloodline, but only 56 have been released. So yes, I am going to speculate on where I think the Drovpal clan is going to fall whenever they're released, but it is purely going to be speculation. So if you wait till the end of the video, you're going to hear me talk about that. Just be aware they can change things before they're released, and we're truly not going to know where they fall until we get to play with them, but we can always guess, right? All right, let's dive right in, and I'm going to explain how I do my tier grading first so you understand why I'm putting certain champions in their various places. S tier to me is God tier. This is like no questions asked. If you have this champion, you're putting it on your main comp. A is for those champions that are like almost there, but they're quite flexible. You can use them everywhere. They're very powerful, but you can kind of mix and match and, you know, benefit certain synergies based on the types of specials or ults that they have. B is very solid heroes. You can definitely win matches with them, but you're probably not going to find them on any top tier teams. C, those heroes have some advantages, but and some positives, but they're not really ones that are going to be your first go-tos. D to me is just like basically a useless hero, and F are heroes that actively hurt your team. So I'm going to run through them all as they're listed in the renowned champion section part of the game. And I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the D and C tier because I just don't use them that much. And this video would be way too long if I did that. So I will highlight certain things that I think are special about particular champions. Let's start with Sallyhorn. I actually kind of like the Sallyhorn male. And he was a great champion for me to start out with because he's got a lot of survivability. He is kind of a meat shield, but he's a strong one early in the game. So I like that for new players. If you happen to get him, he's worth leveling up there. However, I think Sallyhorn female, not as good. I'm putting her at D. The Kargs, unfortunately, just don't have much going for them. Trevane male, there's really no use for him. But the Trevane female, I'm going to give an A. And the reason I'm going to give her an A is because of how much freaking damage she does to the single boss opponents. So Trevane isn't one that you can just slide into your main team comp. She's not going to be there for most people, but she might be in like a second team or a third team. But what she's really used for is those long matches against single bosses because she just piles up the damage more than like any other champion in the game. And so if you're going to try to win contests and rank high and things like that, Trevane female definitely needs to be leveled up and part of your strategy going forward. Yivnian male. I used to like Yivnian male a lot, but I just don't think he's powerful enough to get an A or higher. But what's really nice about him is he can kind of sneak around to the back of opponents where they're really hard to get. Like if you need to try and take out a Tidestorm male or keep him from firing, Yivnian's a good counter to that. So I do like him. He's not in my main team comp, but he's pretty good for various strategies. You do have to really consider like where you're going to place him though, but I like him a lot. Yivnian female, not really useful. Okay, next up we have the Karguks. Not Ugrel, even though they look like Ugrel, and not Karg, even though they sound like Karg. But unfortunately, we don't use them a lot anyway, so I'm giving them both Ds. Now, we have Ignis Male, who I'm going to give a B. He actually does a surprising amount of damage, and where I find him to be the most useful is actually against, again, single bosses. So I'm talking about like raids or when you're in exploration or, you know, stuff like that, or expeditions. I mean, if you look at the damage chart afterwards, Ignis Male actually racks up quite a bit of damage, like a surprising amount of damage. So I'm putting him here because although he's not a main comp type of champion, he is one that can fill out a team that you're trying to do a lot of damage for. But Ignis Female has for a long time, since the beginning of the game, been an A, and that's because she just does an enormous amount of damage with her ult, and she's an area of effect damage dealer, but she does quite a bit of damage in single boss matchups too. She doesn't shine in the single boss matchup, but like because in things like Valley of Conquest and in the arena where you're fighting against 5 opponents, she can deal so much damage. I mean, I take her against the bosses and she does some of the most damage anyway, even though her ultimate is not built for that in particular. But she's excellent. She should be one of the first champions I think most people level up and put in their team. Then we have the Luxuriant Male, who is going to get an F because this champion actively hurts your team. And on top of that... he's got a really stupid kind of ult that, like, if you've ever played against him or with him, he banishes a champion and then the game just kind of stops and you have to wait for him to be unbanished. So, like, nothing's really happening there, and that doesn't really benefit the board or do anything. This guy's a little bit of a joke, but you gotta... If you're going to be summoning, they unfortunately have to throw some of these in from time to time. So there's a diversity in the quality of the champions. Luxuriant Female, however, I am putting at A. I think she's underrated. Now, for the most part, new players, they get Luxuriant Female and they start playing with her and they're like, wow, she's powerful, she's great, right? But then I think a lot of more experienced players feel like they outgrow her and that there's other better champions. But I'll tell you what, like, I've rediscovered Luxuriant Female. She was one of my first mythics, and lately, she's just such an all-star. And not only that, but they did buff her a little recently in being able to slow down opponents. So there is that. And, you know, I think if used right, she can be in a lot of different types of team comps depending on what you're going up against. But in the single... boss fights, she's an all-star. Like, she stops them from firing their special or gaining energy or dealing damage, keeps them at bay. You know, she's not dealing a lot of damage, but she is speeding up your champions. She's slowing the opponent down, and it lets the rest of your team really take over the match. But she works well in those 5 champion comps as well when you're going up against them. Just really taking out one, basically making it a 5 versus 4 type of situation. And so I think people should give her a second look because she should be more comps than I see her in. All right, Zace Male, I'm going to put him at C. I had him, I used him, he's fine, he's like almost there. But I don't think he's even a B tier. Early on in the game, I think he could be useful for basically silencing opponents and doing damage and stuff, but he's just kind of slow is the problem. Zace Female, D. Ugrel Male, I think he's a C as well. Like, he's a good meat shield, but that's pretty much all he is. Ugrel Female, however, I'm going to put at B tier. She's a really good early game type of warrior, and that's because she gains life. She's more than just a meat shield. She kind of, you know, regenerates constitution or HP basically, and that keeps her alive longer. And her spin can be devastating. So if you have a way to clump the opponents up and have her spin into them, she's going to deal a lot of damage and stay alive. But one thing that I found with her is as the team comps get a little more complex, she doesn't really stand the test of time. So the higher that the champions are leveled and the more diversity there is in the specials, she tends to trail off. And I think actually kind of dies relatively easily. Early on in the game, let's say the first 300 levels that you're leveling her up, she's probably the best warrior. But there's another warrior that surpasses her later on, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But let's go to the Elzadiths. Elzadiths are Ds. They don't do much, except they do have a use. You can feed them to other rangers, like Gultang or Tidestorm. We'll get to that later. All right, Aeson Male. Absolutely an A. Some people are going to say S tier. I don't believe he's S tier. I don't think he's just like bar none slotted into your main team comp, but absolutely one of the top champions in the game and could totally be in a main comp. It really depends though. You need to kind of like build around him, but he just does a whole lot for area of effect type damage teams and just increasing the strength and all that. So very, very solid type of hero. Aeson female, however, I'm going to put her down here at C tier. She's another one of these that people they try so hard with her, but she just never seems to break through. But where she's going to be useful and why she's not just totally a D is because of the healing. She's useful in those really long types of events where there's 5 minutes of like fighting going on basically, or like Dungeon Descent, for example, where you're trying to keep your team healed. So she's pretty good with that. Now, Doombringer male, I'm going to put it C tier. He's not used a whole lot, and quite frankly, there's a lot of champions I would rather have fighting than Doombringer male, but he has value because this guy makes you the cash in your districts. He is one of the highest earners in the district, and so you do want to level him up and put like noble and confident on him and things like that, just so that you can make as much gold as you possibly can. That's why he's listed there. Now, underrated in my opinion is Doombringer female. I'm not gonna say she's an A, but I do think she's a little better than Ugrel female, and this is the warrior that passes Ugrel female in the later stages, who gains more life and has more durability. And I'm going to tell you what, I have tested this Doombringer female on my main comp, and for some reason, I've been trying to figure out why, but for some reason, the team seems to be able to last longer with her than without her. She's not currently on my main comp because I have I just went all out, absolutely devastating AoE effects, but and I kind of sacrificed durability of her because she doesn't do a ton of damage. She basically just survives and protects your other champions so that they can go off. But she does enough damage. So I kind of have her. I have her at a B because I think she's more of like a tier 2 type. That's the kind of comp that I put her on. But she's surprising. And if you need a meat shield early in the game, it's really Ugrel female and Doombringer female that you want to start out with. And if you're long-term investing, go with Doombringer female. All right, as far as the Fulgurs go, we have the male. He is absolutely an A, just like female Ignis. Man, you got to have one of the Fulgurs, I think, on like a main comp. It doesn't necessarily matter which one you have. It, you know, whatever one has better traits and you've invested more in is fine. But Fulgur male, I like in particular because he hits all champions on the other side, or all monsters if you're in some kind of event like that, and that's just really, really valuable. But also his clan trait affects the entire team, and that's really important. So that's why you want one of the Fulgurs to get that particular clan trait that's increasing the strength. But I prefer male. Female, I'm going to put at B tier. She's almost as good, but she doesn't hit as many champions on the other side, and I've found that to be not as valuable. So that's why I'm putting her at B, because when you go into those really long events where you really, sometimes you're in like Guardian Defense, for example, and you've got like 20 monsters on the other side, and Fulgur male hits them all, but female doesn't. Right now, if you're fighting like another 5 champion comp, Fulgur female has more value in that kind of situation. And both of them are really, really good against single bosses. I would say, even though I put Fulgur female at B, she's like almost an A. She's probably the strongest B that I have listed here. I can't find as many uses for her as Fulgur male, which is why I separated them that way. Lionstone male, I'm going to put at B, and one reason is because of the longevity he provides. He's really good in like Guardian's Defense or like Dungeon Descent, for example, in trying to keep the team alive through many, many levels or layers. Lionstone female, she is without question the first one I'm going to put at S. She is God tier. This is a hero, and this is what I mean by this. If you have her, she is in your main comp. There's no questions asked. She is the cornerstone of whatever strategy you're trying to do because of the increased attack and speed, everything else in this game hinges off of that. So you absolutely need her. I don't know if there's any more I can say about that. Every single scenario you could possibly be in this game, you need her in there. In fact, it's like kind of to the point where you can't really function properly in this game without her. It doesn't matter what rarity you have. When you get her, common, rare, epic, legendary, whatever, just level her up immediately. And then when you get the higher rarities later on, you can upgrade the rarity, and that's fine. Huntsdorf male, D. Huntsdorf female, D. Nobody ever plays with them. Tidestorm male, A, without a question, very powerful. He's probably the best. Even though he's a ranger, he acts more like an assassin because the dude just takes out one opponent at a time. So much damage. And it's really great because he can hit anywhere on the board and take out champions. I think a lot of people actually like him more than I do. I like a more of an area of effect type of damage dealer. I do like him for my second team, which is very much focused on single bosses or doing a lot of damage to single opponents. But gosh, you're going to see Tidestorm male in so many main comps. People build around him for that for sure. Tidestorm female is almost as good, but I have to put her at B. She's not quite as useful. Just the amount of damage Tidestorm male does stands above everything else. But Tidestorm female is kind of like poor man's male. All right, Griffins. We're going to put at C tier for the same reason we put Doombringer male there. Both of them I'll go ahead and put there, and that's pretty much for the same reason. They're not very useful at fighting at all, but they do make you money, so put them in your districts, level them up. You know what? Griffins are really easy to unlock as far as companions go as well, so unlock them and get the mythics and throw them in your districts. You'll make lots of cash money. Lycanus male, I'm going to put at C. Pretty good for early on in the game, but you quickly outgrow him. His fear is useful, but really quickly gets passed by when you get some of these higher tier champions. Lycanus female, I'm going to put at D. Unfortunately, she just doesn't get used a lot. Now, Lume male, I'm going to put at A. And I'm tempted to put him at B, but there's some uses where he's just really, really good, which is why I'm putting him at A. The female is another one of these that I think people try so hard with, and she's just not anywhere near where the male is. And so the male, you're really going to have to think hard about your particular team comp with him. Make sure you're reading the special on how it interacts with your other champions. But when you get it right, he's an A. That's my opinion. Scorching Fire male. I'm going to put him at D. I could understand an argument for C, but I'm going to put him at D. I just don't think he's all that useful, and Scorching Fire female I think is a little bit better. But both of them just seem to get a little bit overshadowed with a lot of the other champions that have come out. They're mages, and a lot of your mage resources are getting sucked up by all these mages we have here at the top. There's just not a lot of resources left for them. Male does a lot of damage, and that's about it. And, at least the female does a little bit more like crowd control type stuff. But then we have Nas male. I'm going to put him at C tier. I found some use for him. Like if I have to pick him up in Dungeon Descent or something like that. He does a lot of damage and, whatever. But female Nas doesn't really do much of anything. Strixbane male. Okay. I don't know. Both the Strixbanes actually, I'm going to put at C's because some of their traits or characteristics or skills are almost there, but they fall short so much. I would say though that the female, in my opinion, is a little bit higher than the male because at least she can sneak behind into the back row of where opponents are, which is really, really important. Yevnian male does that, but one thing Yevnian male does better and why he's a higher tier is draining the energy of the opponent. And that's just really valuable to be able to control some of those backline characters. So nothing too special there. Divala male totally gets overshadowed by the female. but he's at least a B. I mean, I've fought against some team comps where the male's in there. I'm like, why is the male in there? And the male wrecks. He's awesome. He's great. He's not as good as the female. The female is God tier. Without a question. Do I even need to spend a lot of time talking about this one? Probably not. They released her. A lot of people would say she's overpowered. The people who got her were extremely lucky. You just load her up with vigor and she's like unstoppable. She is unstoppable. Now, some of the other champions they've been releasing recently are definitely geared to try and control her a little bit, because I think they're terrified of the idea of having to like possibly nerf her. So I think what they're going to try to do is go for a rock, paper, scissors kind of situation with some of the champions that are going to come, to where they either slow her down or stop her or something like that, so that we can have more diversity in the team comps. But right now, if you have Limestone female, Divala female, they're in your main comp, no matter what. Don't ask questions. Just put them in there and then start loading Divala female up with vigor. All right, White Eye male. He is going to be A tier. He is like almost Lionstone female, but not quite. The stats are not as good. You can't just replace Lionstone female. You can put them on the same team together. And he is a mage. He's not a tank like Lionstone is, but he is going to increase the attack and the speed of everybody. Obviously, that makes them better. Problem, though, is if you put Lionstone and White Eye on the same team, now, you know, like what other hero are you leaving out for him? So if you don't have multiple Lionstone females leveled up, you could have second and third teams potentially with White Eye male, or you could put Lionstone and White Eye on the same team, and then 3 absolutely devastating other champions like perhaps Ignis and Fulgur and Divala, or Aeson. You know, pick any of these, mix and match, and that would be pretty good. White Eye female, I think she's a little underrated too. I'm gonna put her at B though. I think the healing is really valuable. Again, for those like longer stages where you're trying to go through and keep your team alive. Orost male. Now the Orost clan is one that I actually regret not summoning for. I just couldn't tell when they came out if they were good or not. But after seeing folks level them and playing against them, I do think that the male Orost he's kind of good and underrated. So I'm going to put him at a B. He's just really good at controlling things at the front, but guess who's even better at controlling things? Orost female. The stuns are incredible. She's not only a meat shield, but she just absolutely stops what's going on up front. And so I think that there's a case to be made for putting her in a main comp. I see her in lots of main comps. You know, I think male Orost less likely, but female definitely. And it depends on, you know, how you're trying to develop your synergy. It's going to be more of a crowd control type of synergy. Hyrule male, D, female, D. They're almost Fs. I'm not putting them at Fs though. I know a lot of people were disappointed whenever they were released because they didn't do what they thought they were going to do, and they're not good at fighting. But I just can't put them at F because they're not hurting your team. They're just not doing anything for it. Male Gultang is absolutely, in my opinion, an A. I leveled this guy up and I'm playing with him, and he does a massive amount of damage. To me, this is sort of like a Trevain type of character. Going against single bosses, he's really good. And I'm going to tell you a synergy that's been absolutely amazing with him is pairing him with this male Yivnian, because he silences, and his attack just goes so freaking fast, especially when you pair him with the Lionstone female. But if you also have the Yivnian, you can basically control a single raid opponent or a single boss opponent really easily by silencing them and then decreasing their energy, and they never ever get to go off, and he just sits there racking up so much damage all along the way. He's really great. I'll tell you what, I've even taken him, he's not an AoE kind of champion, but I've taken him into like Guardian Defense, for example, where there's tons of opponents all over the other side, and yet he fires so fast. He kind of acts like a spread out AoE type of character in a way. Now his female, Gultang female, she is AoE. She hits everybody with her javelins, and kind of like Fulgur Male, I really like that AoE that's hitting everybody, because in a lot of team comps, you're fighting against 5, like in Valley of Conquerors or, you know, in the arena or something like that. But Guardian Defense, another example of just where if there's 30 opponents on the other side, she hits them all. She's also very good at crowd control, and can single-handedly, unlike Gultang Male actually, can single-handedly control an opposing single boss. When I have her in my comps, she's in my main comp, by the way, and I go against a single boss, she does not let them fire. Single-handedly. They never, ever, ever get their ultimate off. So she's absolutely incredible. And she racks up a lot of damage. She racks up quite a lot of damage. And I think that between Travaine, Gultang, both, you could have a team comp for those single bosses that's quite powerful. But Gultang female can absolutely be used like everywhere. I think she's a little bit better than the male, but they can be used for different things. And I am leveling on both, and I'm going to use both. Then we have the Samir male, brand new. As I've been fighting against him, I think he's A tier. He's just absolutely devastating up front, pushing opponents back, whipping them around. Like, really, really great, strong character. I think Goat Games did a great job designing this particular champion. And he surprised me with his strength. I'm beginning to regret not summoning for him as well, because of how good he's looking. But there's 2 clans of warriors coming out, and I bet on which clan was going to be better. I'm going to talk about them in a moment, and there's a reason I didn't summon for this one in particular. As far as the female goes, I think she's B. There are people really pushing for her in their main comps, and would probably even argue that the Samir female's an A, but I think she's not quite an A. I think she's pretty good, and especially if you can build the synergies around her. But she's not quite what the male does. The male's very, very good. Okay, here's where I am completely speculating, and that is with the Dravpal clan. Now, I gambled on this one. This is why I didn't summon for Samir's, is because I took a look at the specials of the Dravpal clan, and if you haven't watched that video, go watch that, because I dive deeply into what they do. And there's other YouTubers out there that have covered these, and they look like they're going to be incredible. Both of them, in my opinion. And so while I thought the male Samir would be excellent, I wasn't sure about the female. Both of these are going to be excellent. That's why I saved my summons for this. It's only really worth it for these special ones if you can get the companions so that you can keep leveling them up. Hence why when the Dravpal clan's released, I am going all out. Make sure you're subscribed so you can watch that video when I do that. Let's talk about the male. I think the male is an A. You're getting CC characteristics with these, crowd control, but you're also getting a ridiculous amount of damage coming from this particular clan. We're actually getting some really good warriors now. Up to this point, I think there's been a lot of complaints about the quality of the warriors, and you had to choose between Ugril female and Doombringer female if you were going to have a warrior. But at this point, they're making up for lost time. And Dravpal male and put right there next to the Samir male. But the female, this is just speculation, but I think she could potentially be S tier. As in, like, you're going to put her in your team, and you're not going to ask questions. Again, go watch my video on Dravpal clan to find out why I think that's the case. But if they release her as she's listed currently in the Renowned Champions, she's just about one of the best champions. She's silencing. She's stunning. She's dealing a ridiculous amount of damage. She's got these little snakes going all over the place, just dealing damage. I mean, I am really excited about her. I have been saving up resources for warriors that I'm just going to totally throw into her and do a video on that. But that's where I think the Dravpals are going to shake out when they're released, as long as they don't change something, which they totally could. Just be aware of that. Now, that's what I think. What do you guys think? If you have opinions about this tier list, let me know in the comments. I'm totally cool with disagreement, but I want to know why. So let me know your thoughts on that. I don't pretend that I know everything about this game, but this is just my opinion and my playing with the champions too. Other people are going to have different experiences and have found synergies they think are better. All right, if you haven't already, make sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and I will catch you in the next one.